Hopefully, oh, there we go. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Coffee and Colorful Conversation. As you see, I have a special guest today. Her name is Kay. She is from England. We connected through the amazing platform of social media. Somehow we found each other. I think it was Instagram, Kay, was it?
It
Oh,
was,
wait a
yes.
minute. It's saying we have an error. Let's see if anybody can see us. Let me check my phone. It's saying an error occurred. Wait a moment and try again. Hold on. I don't want us to talk to ourselves for a half hour. Of course, this is getting slow. This is spinning too. So I wonder if it's Facebook in general. I don't see anybody on there, so I don't think that it's showing up. All right, let me click it again. Okay, it says you are live. Let me try something. If you all can see me, bear with me. I'm trying to make sure that you can. Hopefully my computer will be faster than, okay, now I see us. It looks like 4 people. Okay, there we go. Looks like we are good. Sorry, guys, technology always. I was getting an error message and I wanted to make sure we were not talking to ourselves. So, Donna, Sarah, Gabriella, Joanna, Justina, now the gang's all here. Justina, I was just talking about you. Kay is from England, and I was telling her that you are also on lockdown in Ireland. So you two need to connect. So everyone, I'll start this again. Kay is from England. She is a passionate educator and hairstylist, and we connected on social, and I invited her to be my guest. Most of you know I've talked, over different coffee chats that I love to educate myself and to get to as many international events as I can to see, you're always curious if Vidal Sassoon was like such a force in our industry. And of course, he's from England, and so many amazing stylists have come from England that you start to say, what are they doing over there across the pond that we don't know about? Kay and I spoke. She was on my podcast. I hope that you'll take a listen, the Ask the Color Expert podcast. We had a great time chatting together. And one of the focuses that we talked about was the difference in our education. Here in the States, it's, you can be done in less than a year. I was really passionate about getting in and getting out. I was excited to get my hands in some hair. So I was done in like 9.5 months. And, in Europe, it's a few years, but there's also some changes coming there. So, Kay, let's bring people up to speed on that as well. First of all, welcome. Thank you for hanging out with me this morning and with my coffee chat audience. It's exciting to have you.
Well, thank you so much, Elaine, for inviting me. I've got my hot chocolate today for me.
Oh, nice.
I found a new way to make hot chocolate with Lindt chocolate balls and hot milk. That's the way forward. And I've decided, because I'm not actually eating the chocolate, it doesn't count.
No calories. No calories when it's liquefied.
No calories at all. So thank you for inviting me. I love the podcast and I'm so happy to be here with everybody. So yes, in Europe, our education generally is a 2-year course, but changes are happening there. through the VTCT, which are one of our qualification boards, we now can deliver the training in a slightly quicker format, as long as the students are getting through the work and putting the time in at their workplace as well. The education now is, we aim to do it in about 18 months. So I've just come back into education after quite a long time. I trained 20 odd years since I was in teaching as MBQs, which was our qualification body, first came in. When I actually did my own qualifications, they were what we call City and Guilds, and that was a 2-year full-time course. The MBQs came in, which was more a work-based place type of education I found, and I came out of the training at that point. I think I found a lot of it was very much multi-choice question based, and when I was teaching my students, I was finding that they would go, the question would have an ABC answer or D answer, and they'd just sometimes guess it, and they'd work it out that couldn't be it and that couldn't be it, so that must be it. And when I actually physically asked them the question without the answer present, they couldn't do it. And I was finding that frustrating as an educator. So I came away from education. I've gone back into it, and I think it's changed tremendously. And I'm really pleased how it's changed, because I do find the particular college I'm in at the moment, when I'm doing what we call our Assessors Award, which is so that I can teach again. I'm in there volunteering, so I'm redoing my assessors and I'm volunteering as well. And I'm finding that we're asking more probing questions. It's not just multi-choice. We really do need them to find that information. We're setting much more projects for them to go away and search themselves, and so we know that they're learning things. And I feel really confident about how education is going at the moment. Within our industry, I think there is some movement to make some changes, and some good positive changes. How it's going to fare going to sort of an 18 months situation, I don't know, but the college I'm actually in at the moment is a private college, so it's different than our mainstream colleges. And as such, the mainstream college will have about 15, 20 in a class. The private college has no more than 5. So this makes a massive difference, because you can give them so much more time. So I can understand how they can deliver that course within 18 months, because we're definitely giving them more time. And as from a point of we're not now called teachers, we're now called assessors. From an assessor's point of view, I'm finding just having 5 students is so amazing.
That's
they're
amazing,
like they're like little sponges, because it's more private, because they're not within our system. If you cannot get a place on a course you want, or you just kind of, oh well, you can go be a hairdresser. That's so wrong. So these students really need to want to be. So some of the students are on a hairdressing course in our mainstream colleges that don't really want to be hairdressers. So you get a lot of feedback negatively from them, because they're not interested in being there. But these private colleges, it's different, because they've chose to go to be a hairdresser, and their employer is sending them there. So they want to be a hairdresser. And for me, they're like little sponges. They absorb everything up, and they're full of questions, and they're grasping at the knowledge, and their enthusiasm to learn is just, it blows my mind all the time how they are. They are so wonderful. So I really am enjoying being in the private college education section, because they're definitely doing it a little bit different. I think our mainstream colleges will still be working at that more 2-year level, although I am told that they too are going to go to this 1-year thing, sort of level, and that worries me in the volume of students that's in the class there. I don't think they would attain the same things. And I think when they leave as well, it's like driving a car, isn't it? You pass your test, and then you learn to drive a car. and it's
Isn't
the
that scary? And
experience.
16. How old do you have to be in England to drive a car? Is it 16 there too?
No, you've got to be 17 years of age when you can learn to drive a car in the UK. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think when I look at a 16-year-old now, I'm like, wow. I mean, I couldn't wait to get my license, and I was there on my birthday taking the test. I didn't want to wait a minute. But when I look back, that's way too much
Yeah.
to put on a 16-year-old, all the things that can possibly go wrong. It's very scary.
Yeah.
I love the apprenticeship angle of the European system, where it's not just bookwork and clinic floor school vibe.
Yeah.
I think I was telling you when we chatted before, I have a friend in Colorado who created a hybrid system similar to what they do in Europe, where the students are able to have an apprenticeship all while they're studying in the program, and they get credit for the hours that they're in the salon actually getting their hands in hair with a strong mentor. I can't say how much I love that option. And her and I chatted back and forth, and she gave me everything that I needed to go and try and do it in Pennsylvania. And the bureaucracy involved, the government part of it was so exhausting and expensive. And when I think about, what's missing in our industry is really strong connections with mentors. And that would really promote that and make it easier for the mentor and the apprentice to connect. But when you have to answer to these rules and structures and reporting of hours, and there's all of that, where I think most times our government systems don't really understand our trade. They don't really understand what it is that we do. And it's just something that is broken, but it's almost like it's so complicated that no one really knows how to help fix it. So that's where I started doing, as an independent educator. I said, you know what? I don't want to be with a brand and going into salons in those mandatory salon product knowledge classes where every stylist sits like this and is, annoyed that they either had to come in early, stay late, or miss a client and miss income to sit through it. I didn't want to do that, but I want it to bridge. I kept trying to think of a name for my education, and I kept saying like crossroads, because you come out of school and you're like, oh, I got this. I have my license. I'm so excited. I want to get behind the chair. And then you start to interview and they're like, yeah, sure. You can come sweep, tear foils, do my laundry. Absolutely. Come on in. You can get $8 an hour. And you're like, but I did that during school. I don't want to do that anymore. And it's very rare that someone says, come be with me, stand by me. I want to share what I know with you. Like, that always gave me so much more purpose. I'm there anyway. I'm there doing the thing behind the chair anyway. So why not have someone who, to your point, is a sponge, who wants to learn, who wants to, soak in everything that you know. And you're growing, especially as a salon owner, you're growing a future employee, and you're molding them in the way that you would love for them to handle your clients and mix their color and do all the things. But what happens, I know in the US, I don't know if this has been your experience, but when you're an owner and you have that mentor mentality that I have, 30 years, the amount of people that you've taken the time with and poured everything into, and then you get burnt. They become the superstar. I'm so great. I need more money. I need more money. Or they, get so into what they're doing and they start to see some success, and then they shut down and they don't want to hear anything else. It's like they don't want to learn anymore. They've hit their success point and they're filled up. So then you get disgruntled as the mentor, where you're like, you want them to continue to be the student, to continue to be at the top of their game. And then you're just like, well, whatever, I'm just going to hire somebody to shampoo. And it's a shame, because I've seen it so many times in the industry where someone who was such a strong teacher and mentor just completely gave up and just got busy behind the chair themselves and just started to be like, you know what, just tear my foils and don't talk to me. It becomes like such a burnout.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you there. I'm just turning my budge because I think they keep giving some feedback. I'll push them there. I was the same from my point of view in my salon. The amount of staff I'd had and trained up, and as you say, you get the burn, and I now just work on my own. But I still feel passionate that I have something to give to people to help their education. And this is why I decided that to actually go back into a college setting, I could still give them that enhancement, but they weren't with me in my salon, and I wasn't going to spend them years training them and then them go. So I still got that, selfish, isn't it? But I still got that fulfillment that I was giving something to my industry, because I'm very keen to give back to the industry. But I couldn't stand the upset when that person went, because you've often formed such a working relationship with them and you put a lot of love and care into them, and then they go, and you understand that, you know, sometimes you're just not the right fit for each other anymore, but it still hurts. It really still hurts. And so I find now educating, being the assessor, I find that so rewarding. I find it so giving with those young people. And as much as the college that I'm at say that I give those students so much enhancement from the years experience I've got, I get so much enhancement back from them. I can learn so, as even as young as they are, I can learn so much from them, and their mindset and their mindset of fashion, and how they see colour and how they see the world of hairdressing. It just enlightens me. I come home and absolutely dancing about. They are just, they're so wonderful. I do find it very, very rewarding, but I do think that we're on some positive lines. I think the apprenticeship is a marvellous way forward. I wasn't apprentice trained. I was full-time college. And as you say, you come out and you think, oh, I know it all. This is it. I'm away. And you're not away at all. I remember all the years since that I left. I went to the first salon I went to, and they was like, no, you can sweep the floor and you can wash this. And I was like, no, it's not for me. And then the second salon I went to for a day's trial, I just found that day I was just running around doing lots of work, and lots of people were stood about, and I was doing haircuts and all sorts, and they were leaving me to it, but they were literally leaving me to it. And
it's extreme, right? It's one extreme or the other.
And I wasn't getting any help, and this haircut come in that I didn't know how to do, and I asked the head stylist, and he just said, yeah, he just said, do how you think. So I had to fathom this haircut out on my own, and I did it, and it looked really good. And I just thought, I'm not staying here to make you a lot of money when I'm having to think on my own feet anyway. I'll go on my own feet. So they said to me at the end of the day, you're amazing. We want to sign you up. We want to give you a job. And I went, no, I'm sorry. I'm not making you rich. I've learned by my mistakes today on my own. So I'll go out there on my own. And literally that's what I did. I'm not saying that is the way forward, but
that can be tricky in a whole different way.
Yeah, in a complete different way. And that was 34 years since, and that was my mentality as a strong-headed 18-year-old of, well, I've just had to learn myself today. I can learn myself any day. So I just, and 34 years since, there was no Facebook, no way of accessing the courses or education, and I just had to. It was the Hairdressers Journal. I used to wait every Friday for it to come, read from cover to cover. There would be color tips and cutting tips, and I bought so many videos, and eventually I could go to see some of the stars, but they were always in London or big cities, and I lived up in the country, so it's always a travel. And I made so many mistakes along the way. Boy, did I make some mistakes. And boy, did I learn from them mistakes. Would I advise anybody to do it today? No, because do you know what? They don't have to. Everything is out there now. They can leave college and they can get that extra enhancement they need, because there's so much education out there for people, and people like my age that want to redevelop themselves and invigorate themselves and re-educate. There's that education out there. I think at the moment we are in the most amazing time for knowledge. To you and I, you're in America, I'm in a little town in West Yorkshire in England, and we're connecting and talking, and we can talk about colour. And I could message you if I was in a problem and say, what would this be? And we didn't have those connections. But I feel now with so many connections, the phone is always pinging. There's always somebody messaging saying, okay, I'm just going to do this colour mix. What do you advise? Or, you know, I couldn't even be in my salon, and I've had people message me saying, I've got a guest in front of me and I'm really not quite sure what to do. Can you help me? And if I can, I will. I always will. And I find that really rewarding and
I love it too. I think that we have to be careful because I've been retraining myself as an educator to, I want to save everyone and I want to give them the answer. You know, I think if I was an algebra teacher, I'd be like under my breath for giving them the answer because I hate math so much. But it's hard to hold back and allow the student to come to the conclusion on their own. I know with my members, when they first join, the first thing they do is say, you know, I have this client, here's the picture, what do I do? And I'm like, let's talk about it. What do you see? And, you know, I ask the guiding questions, and it's really hard because you just want to get right to it, but they are blossoming and figuring it out and really asking themselves, because it goes back to your point of the multiple choice. Life is not going to come with a list of multiple choice answers. When they are behind a chair, wherever it is, they're not going to have a magical thing appear in the air and say, should you lighten, deepen, or change the tone? You know, that's not going to pop up. Maybe someday with technology being so crazy, it will. But for right now, they need to think quick on their feet.
Yeah.
Part of the reason that I moved to Florida, I've lived in, you know, right outside of Philadelphia, PA, my entire life, born and raised, moved maybe 20 minutes from my house that I was, you know, grew up in. Part of the reason I moved here was my frustration with wanting to educate and overthinking it. I thought I have to have a teacher's license. I can't teach without a teacher's license. So I would call all the beauty schools, and every single school in my area, the teacher's license program was a full-time program. I owned a really busy, thriving salon and was one of the busiest colorists behind the chair. So I would sit down and figure it out. And between the tuition and 6 months of full-time education, I can't see my clients. I can't pay attention to my business. I was like, this does not make any sense. And I have so much I can offer and bring to these beauty schools, but I was being cut off by the ability to get that license. I said, I will come part-time. I will come. I don't care if it takes me 3 years, as long as I can still run my business and do it, I'm all in. And they were like, no, and you can't do it. And then when I shadowed and saw what they do, it's basically like, you need to show up for this many hours so that we can tell the state you were here, but they weren't going to teach me how to teach. So it was really frustrating. And I happened to somehow be on the phone with the State Board of Cosmetology in Florida for something else. I don't even know why. And I said, tell me about your requirements for teaching. And they said, oh, you can have an apprentice right now just with a stylist license. I was like, amen, I'm moving, because I want for someone to be able to come to me and say, teach me. I want to, if my daughter decides to be a hairstylist, which I don't see it happening, but if she did, I could apprentice her and show her and cut through most of the stuff that I know she's not going to need behind the chair and get her licensed and so much further along with real life situation. So it's just a constant frustration. And your point earlier, when you said when people are sponges and they want to absorb everything, 80% of the disconnect in learning what to do behind the chair is always attitude, how they show up, and are they really a student, or are they somebody who the parents are making them do something? You know, they're kind of lost and don't know what their direction is. But when the passion is there and the eagerness to learn is there, like you said, I mean, I could sit here and send somebody 15 videos in 5 minutes and say, just take your time and go through these and you're going to understand it at the end of it. You know, that the technology is just absolutely amazing.
Yeah. yeah, technology's changed everything so much, hasn't it? For me, I've had to learn how to use the new technology, which has been a task in itself. I mean, this summer, last summer was the first time that I had a laptop. I find an iPad so easy to use, but I needed a laptop. So the actual learning to use a laptop itself, it was like a major task for me. I made such a mountain out of it, you know, but it's important. And when I started teaching the students to get their laptops out, and I'd be like, oh, I don't know how to do that on my laptop. So they were like, let us show you, let us show. So you see, I'm learning so much. I'm just learning so much from them in different ways as well. But yeah, it's very similar to what you're saying, that I looked at our local college. I wanted to go in and give some enhancement to the students free of charge, to go in and really talk to them, because I felt that something was missing, the connection with them and industry. And I felt the mainstream colleges were out of touch with industry completely. And when they were leaving, the reason that these young people weren't getting into industry was because the college had lost its touch on what industry was looking for. But I failed miserably trying to get in there, and that was to go in voluntarily.
I had the same exact Donna is on here, Donna Hogg. I've taught her students, and I've taught someone named Liz who's in my membership. I've taught her students quite a bit over quarantine, and I am thrilled and happy to do it. I just had someone from a Paul Mitchell school reach out to me through my YouTube yesterday, and he was like, oh my gosh, I would love. And I was like, absolutely. I've never said no. I thrive on getting in front of beauty school students, and I cannot tell you how many closed doors I experienced on my way to where I am now virtually. When I was trying to be in person educating, I was like, I will drive 2 hours to a beauty school to teach in front of them, and I wouldn't get a phone call back. I wouldn't have any follow-up. I wouldn't get anywhere. And I think a bigger frustration as a salon owner is the career matching. The schools have such an opportunity to help their graduating stylist connect with a salon, and they don't have any interest in doing that. And I don't understand why. I'm wondering if maybe they feel responsible if it doesn't go well. I'm trying to find a reason. I'm trying not to judge, but I can't imagine. I'm such a connector. I love when someone says, oh, I really, I want to have a birthday party for so-and-so, and I need a special venue. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you have to go to blah, blah, blah. Like, I get so excited connecting people. So as a salon owner, as an educator, and as a stylist myself, I think what a missing piece of connection, that these schools are not taking advantage of having people come in. And I get it. That I'm sure there's a little bit of hesitation, especially with me, because you never know what I'm going to say. But I think there's a little bit of fear involved of maybe that guest artist is going to say something either too advanced and confuse the students. Because I always will check in with the instructor. I'll say, do you think this is going to confuse them? Because they still have to take their boards. And we all know, everyone listening, and you and I all know, that once you get out into the field, it's a lot different than what you need to do to pass state boards. It's just the way that it is. So I that's my concern. I try not to say anything that, could harm them in a multiple choice answer as far as how I'm presenting something. But having a stronger segue between school and the real world would be so amazing. Like, that's what I'm striving to do, but I'm finding it difficult to connect to that exact situation. That right out of school person, I think they're so wandering around aimlessly, like, where do I even begin, that they don't know how to connect with someone like you or I that really wants to be there for them. There's something disconnecting all of us.
Yeah, I think so. And that's what I'm hoping, that you and I are very similar, Elaine, in our thought process and our thinking of all this, because I feel so. I feel there's them missing connections, and it's how do I make them connections to those to those people, so that they know that there's some support there, there's some help there, there's that way forward there. And like I only came into online education last year in the first lockdown. I'd hope to this year be looking into getting that level of education ready to launch myself. But the first lockdown sort of pushed me forward a lot further forward. And my courses have been going well. And I also feel that not just the young students coming out of their apprenticeship time, but I feel that people like myself, you know, they did those apprenticeships, they did those full-time colleges, and then they maybe went and got a job in a salon, and they had that safety net. So when they had a colour to do, they go into the dispensary and somebody say mix that and that with that and that and just put it on like that. And they do it. And then as years have gone on, they're still doing it, but they're not sure why they're doing it. And could they do it differently? And could they make it look even more enhanced and luxurious if they knew more? And I'm finding so many people coming on my colour courses are saying to me, I'm doing the same that I did all those years since, because I'm not quite sure how to do it different. And it's the fundamentals, especially in colour, it's the basic fundamentals. And so I try to revisit those fundamentals and cover that with them again, so that they can take their skill to that next level and not think, I'm 40, what's the point? Well, there's a great point, because you can really have so much creativity freedom the more you search out that knowledge that will help you. And I find so many people on my courses, that's one of the things they say to me all the time, was that they had a safety net around them, and they've never wanted to find out what were outside of that safety net, but now they do, and now they realise they need that more information. So I think there's two levels in education at the moment, and I think that, you know, like yourself, working across both levels of the spectrum, because in so many ways they're not dissimilar. Them young people need those extra information to take them in, and the people that have been in the industry for a long time need to revisit them fundamentals. So yeah, I think that there's a massive connection between it, and I think that we can learn so much from the young people as well. They've got some fresh ideas that can be brought into that game of play as well. So I think there's a lot of leveling between us all. I think the industry is not an ageism place. I think that we've got so much to share, and so much knowledge that we can share with each other. I think there's a great future. I think education is going to be so massive. I think these lockdowns, particularly in our country, have opened up the education in a very different way. The fact that people can do this online, they don't have to leave the house. They can learn it through the TV screen, the mobile phone, they can get a mannequin, they can practice, and they can improve the skills. And they're often in a group where they can just keep going back in and asking for that bit of extra help and that bit of extra advice. So I think education's really, really an exciting time now to be involved in. I think we're going to see massive growth in this field around the world.
I agree. I mean, if anything came out of the pandemic that was a positive, it's that people have embraced how valuable a virtual education, like you and I literally could say, let's teach a class together. And the two of us right now, like we're talking, we can have a screen filled with students watching them do a hands-on thing and say, oh, raise your elbow up a little bit. You're losing your posture. You can be looking at her. I can be looking at her. I mean, how crazy is that we are so far away, but yet it's like you're across from me at a Starbucks and we're having coffee. So I absolutely love that. Revisiting the color wheel. I'm in the middle of a fearless formulation challenge that I offer. And I have to tell you, every single time I offer this program, there is never a stylist in the program that has less than 12 years of experience. And it's all the fundamentals, to your point. I think it's been so long since we sat in a classroom that we have that color wheel knowledge in the back of our brain, but we forget about it. And never has it been more important than in glazing. I think people don't realize how important the color wheel is to your glazes and toners, because you have so much going on. You're lightening hair, you have porosity issues, you have different tones left in the hair. And the thing that makes me absolutely insane is when people ask a question on a forum, especially a certain brand forum where they're looking for a recipe, and they'll say, there's no photo. They'll say, my client's coming in later and she wants caramel. What do I use? And I sit and watch all the comments. There's hundreds of recipes of caramel. And I'm like, but what was on the hair to begin with? How can you give a recipe if you don't know what's on the hair? And really digging into that color wheel knowledge and understanding what's the difference between literal gold being left in the hair and yellow. There's a huge difference between yellow and gold as far as toning and glazing. But people just see one color and they call everything orange. Everything's orange. So then everybody goes in with mad amounts of blue, and then they end up with murky, muddy hair and say, oh, that product sucks. I have to go and switch to another brand. I'm just like, oh, take your time, people. There's a color wheel for a reason. It's like so important to go back to this, the thing that started it all. So I'm so excited that you're doing online education. I've had such an amazing experience over the last 3-4 years doing this. And my traction is growing because people are so happy to find someone who is taking it back to the fundamentals and not skipping anything. When I start out that class, I say, please don't roll your eyes when I pull out the color wheel. We all need to revisit this, myself included. So it's like taking it back to old school and really getting that foundation to be really strong so that you never need to phone a friend ever again. You can just calmly assess the situation and know how to move forward. So tell people how they can find you and get in touch with you. I'm sure there's people on here that want more of Kay and want to check out your education.
Yeah, so I am on Facebook and I'm Kay Binnersley Hair. So if you find me on there, you'll then be able to message me and I'll direct you to my website. And you can then sign up for any of my courses. I run Colour Confidence boot camps. They are amazing. They're really, really busy. Busy in the fact that I don't allow any more than 15 people on. You come into it's a 4-day, 1 hour, but I'm a little bit of a chatter, so usually it's 1.5 hours. And they're on an evening time generally, so that if you're in different parts of the world, it tends to be an evening in the UK is probably an afternoon somewhere else. So it means it's a little bit more inclusive for everybody. And the first course, the first day, I just like you said, Elaine, the first day I always say I make no apologies. I'm taking you right back to the basics. So here's the colour wheel. I know you might know it. Here's the colour triangle. I know you think you might know your primary colours. I know you think you might know your secondary colours. Let's talk about them tertiary colours that we never talk about. Let's bring this in. And I really take them back to some basics. Because as you say, when we're glossing and glazing and toning, there's nothing more important than that colour wheel and understanding the values of the tones that we're going to use as well. So we cover that over different days. We pick up different topics. We cover tonal value, we cover formulation, we cover the colour wheel. We look at we touch very lightly on the 3D colour wheel because that can sometimes really
that confuses me. Minds. Yeah, I think that's a little too. I know a lot of educators that get into that, and I'm like, I feel like that is going to scare more people.
Yeah. So we don't. Yeah, I did a course in the summer where I put that in, and it was a Zoom, and I looked at the screen and I had 6 faces all going. and that's when I thought, so the basic of that, I just tell them, look, there is a colour wheel. It is a 3D formation. It isn't really flat, but going into that becomes more complex. You just need to be aware it's there, because sometimes a colour will slide, and that is because of the weight of the colour. So I touch it very lightly, so we don't really confuse it and get into any situations with it, because it's not the easiest thing to understand, and I don't want to make it complicated for them. We also do what I call Let's Get Social. So I do a session of social media, and all my tips and tricks that I've learned as a what I call a lay person about social media. I'm not a social media guru, but I know how to use it, how to press little things that'll put me in locations, how to go fishing a little bit so my name gets into different quarters, and give them some little spin-offs from there. We do a session that I call Let's Get Photographic, and let's talk about how do we take us photos, where should we take us photos, the difference between the camera and just turning the head, and if we get this is the same picture but look how it looks in 3 different positions. And then I do a colour clinic where they can send me in any questions relating to anything they have, and we'll pick some of those out and try and deal with them. And then I kind of, on the final day, do a sweep up of it all and give them some tips, some tricks, some tools that I love to use. And then they stay in that group with me for 2 months. It's open for them. They can ask questions relating to that course throughout those 2 months. But what I always say to them is, I'll never leave it. I'm always here. So even though my other boot camps have gone past the 2 months, the group's still there. I can go in it if I want to, and they're messaging me. I mean, we've gone back into a lockdown, and straight away, both sets of the 2 colour, because I ran the first colour course, the boot camp was the first very boot camp was October. I'd done lots of things in the summer, but the specific boot camp. Then I did on the second lockdown, and they're all like messaging me, are you going to run a follow on? Can you do something else?
More and more. Yeah.
More and more and more. So what I've said to them pretty much is, I'm working on a follow on, but it's not ready yet. But I will come in each week on a Tuesday morning, and very much like this, I'll have a cup of coffee with you all. If any of you've got any questions, send me them in the week before. We'll pick some of them out and we'll discuss it. And I'll try and get a few people in here from the industry to have a little chat with you. So some weeks it won't be me in it, it'll be somebody else doing it for you. And we'll do it throughout this lockdown. We go back and we'll see how things go from there. So it's lovely that they're wanting me to grow it, and they want to stay with me. And as I say, I've always said to them, look, if you're struggling, you need me, I'm always at the end of a phone message. Just send me a message. If I can help you, I will. So I think I'm excited. I think it's really going to grow over the next few years, and I'd love to get it to position very similar to you, where I've got a group. But at the moment, growing that group and managing it, I know will be a lot of work. And I'm still trying to finish my Assessors Award, which I'm hoping this lockdown I am going to be really strict myself, stop procrastinating as I do, and really get the assignment done so that I can get back and hopefully obviously this has just slowed us up so much, unfortunately, the virus. That sounds selfish, doesn't it? But I don't mean it. But our students can't work on real life models, so they can't do their assessments. So they're unfortunately so far behind in their assessments. We're doing lots of work on mannequins, and that's amazing. But I need to assess them on real models so that I can pass my award as well. So I'm hoping I can get that done, and then I can really concentrate on this education and really build a group, a platform, because I think I have got a lot to offer to people, and I've got a lot to learn myself, and we can learn and grow from each other. So I'm excited, and it'd be lovely if any people would like to come onto my courses. I'd really welcome that, because I think that although we're across the pond from each other, we can learn so much from each other.
Absolutely. And I would love for you to come and do a session with my group, and I would love to meet your group. We'll have coffee with
Oh, well,
your
that would be so wonderful. We'll organize that. That would just be
Yeah, let's plan to do that.
amazing.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, yeah,
Awesome.
let's
Thank
do
you
that.
so much. And everyone,
Oh,
please
no, thank
connect with Kay
you.
and follow her on social. It was a pleasure having
you.
you today. And
Thank
I will
you.
see everyone next week. Thanks for coming and watching Coffee Chat.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Bye. Thank you, Elaine.